Hello everybody, welcome to WhatCulture Gaming. I'm Scott, joined by Josh.
Hello, Scott.
Josh, my friend, the obvious has happened as much as we called it across the majority of this year. God of War Ragnarok, God of War 2, whatever you want to call it, has been pushed back to 2022. Now, the only date that was associated with this game was the initial teaser for it, where it said Ragnarok is coming, and then 2021 came on screen. But Sony haven't said anything in regards to that game since then, in regards to a release date anyway. And it's just been this weird, nebulous, lingering date that we hoped was coming across the rest of this year, because it'd be nice to get a PS5 exclusive things to play on the new system, show off what it could do, but no, that's been pushed back until next year. Now, it's obviously worth clarifying that the base reality of this is relating to everything that happened across last year, and this news itself comes from Herman Holst from Sony themselves on the Sony blog, saying that the reality of the game's production, the fact that it was relying so much on motion capture, access to performance capture and talent, is the reason that it's being pushed back. What's your initial thoughts on this before I break down many other things that came out in this Sony blog?
Like you said, I feel like it's inevitable. Ever since it was announced that it was supposed to be coming in 2021, I think a lot of people were just like, that's not going to happen. That's way too quick of a turnaround, especially like you said, with everything that's gone on. In the article where he's explaining, why they've had to do it, issues with getting the talent, issues with, recording mocap in the current conditions, totally empathize and totally understand why you don't want to just, ruin your team to push for a seemingly impossible date. I'm totally okay with it being delayed. Personally, I think God of War as a franchise deserves the time, deserves the polish, and the developers working on it deserve to not be, like I said, run all over the shop to get this game out. However, it is kind of weird that they even did 2021 at all on the first trailer and then just kind of like didn't mention it. For me, I'm surprised there was a date to begin with, and that's kind of, I guess, the big question of why do they do that when even people seemingly outside of the studio were speculating that there was no chance it was going to hit that date.
That was always what Jason Schreier kept saying. There was no way in hell it was going to hit that day. That's the thing. That's the thing the only part of this that I'm not okay with, is the fact that they put it out as part of the teaser before the PS5 was available, which just feels in hindsight like it was to drive the demand towards the PS5. If they had no notion of it actually coming out across 2021, they would have known in September last year that it wasn't going to hit this date this year. And there's also the fact that revealed in here is that God of War is also coming to PS4, which it's the way that it's phrased, but it's mentioned in this blog that both Horizon Forbidden West and God of War were both developed on PS4 and PS5, which implies that they always knew when they were saying this 2021 date, when they were sort of passing it off as this PS5 exclusive. Same with Horizon before that was announced to also be coming to PS4. I don't like the way all this the optics of all this stuff has been handled, where you sort of lead people down one route, going, this is the PS5, this is the reason to get the console, these are the games, these are the exclusives, and then say, hey, by the way, you actually would have been fine with the console you already had. Like, yes, the original base PS4 is going to struggle, but you could get a PS4 Pro, you could have elongated it that way. I don't like that side of it. I think that it kind of sucks. I want to experience the games that are made for the console that I dropped $500 on, or £1,000 on. I think that side of it has been very messy.
Yeah, definitely. It's been a lack of clarity all around, especially because, it's easy to say now that it's obvious that these games are going to come to PlayStation 4. That's Sony's MO. They've been doing it with, like you said, Horizon, they did it with Spider-Man. No, but that's what I mean. It is now. Before launch, it wasn't that at all. It was Jim Ryan coming out and saying, we believe in generations, a quote which has aged like just bad milk, the worst milk you could ever buy. But at the same time, they've done this before. They did it with Spider-Man Miles Morales. When that was first shown off, there was no indication that it was going to PlayStation 4, and then it was the next trailer that actually confirmed that this is a cross-gen release. And they seem to be doing that for a bunch of different games, and like you say, in hindsight, they would have known that. They would have known that God of War was being developed on the PlayStation 4, and the fact that they hadn't clarified that until now, it does make it appear like it was just done to drive PlayStation 5 sales and make PlayStation 5 feel more essential than perhaps it actually is, because a lot of these games you can play on previous gen. And we do have games like Returnal, like Ratchet & Clank that are PS5 exclusive, but God of War, Horizon, Spider-Man, they're the big hitters. They're the big IP. They're the ones that sell 20 million copies a piece, And, the fact that we're going to go into 2022 now and still have these tentpole releases releasing cross-gen it makes me wonder if there's ever going to be a kind of break, as there were in previous gens, to where we just have PlayStation 5s. And as a final note, before I let you come and speak and stop this rambling, I do fully understand, that we're speaking from a position of privilege, because we've got PlayStation 5s, we have access to them. A lot of people simply don't at this moment in time, so they're obviously, going to be like, yes, please make it cross-gen. But, as you imagine, going into next year especially, according to what PlayStation themselves have said, hopefully, development starts ramping up, and hopefully these PlayStations become more widely available, so we're not in this position where, we're in this kind of bottleneck of production.
But even outside the availability side of it, if you're making a new tech product and you're going to say you're going to make things for this new tech product, I'm going to go down that route with you and I'm going to buy into it and I want to see what you're doing. There's a whole side of it that is the artistic side of it, the tech side of it. I just want to see what these games are. Outside of, like I said, outside of the reality of the availability of the systems, which will solve itself over time. Maybe that's all this is just a reaction to the fact that they can't get enough PS5s out there. Although, if you compare it to this point in the PS4's life cycle, the PS5 is outselling where the PS4 was at that time. So it seems like the PS5 will do just fine enough over time. But yeah, that sort of base reality of the way that they advertise stuff, the way that they've driven demand towards the console without really following through on it, I think that stuff is really lame and really just a bit naff, just a little bit shady, just sort of making it seem like they needed to have all these things up front to guarantee that the PlayStation fires out the gates really, really strong. But then, hey, by the way, these games were always in development for the previous consoles and you didn't need to go through the staying up till 2 a.m. or worrying about getting a PS5 because you're clearly fine without one.
Yeah, I think, when it comes to my own personal opinion on this matter, I don't mind that stuff like Miles Morales is cross-gen. I don't mind that Horizon is cross-gen, for instance. For me, it's entirely in the messaging, and it's because PlayStation, as a brand, last year positioned itself in opposition to Microsoft, who was coming out and saying, look, all of these games are going to be available across the entire Xbox family. We don't mind what you buy. You're going to be able to play them. And it was almost like, in a reaction to that, to try and make themselves seem different, they started saying, we believe in generations, we're going to have these cutoff points. And obviously that hasn't come true. And if they were more open about it initially and they were saying, we're going to do something similar, we want these things to be cross-pollinating all of our different platforms. We don't want to immediately copy what we did in previous generations and cut these older consoles off. I'd be much more open to it because I'm like, that is at least honest, open communication rather than this, here's a trailer for this new game. We're not actually going to tell you what platforms it's coming to, but also you can pre-order the next-gen system if you want right now and you'll be able to play it on there in some form. And that kind of does suck, like you were saying. But I do understand why they're doing this. I think, obviously, it boils down to money. That's the short answer. But again, going back to their investor part, which I mentioned a few times in these videos, I keep coming back to that pie chart they had about where they're getting their revenue from. And in 2013, it was almost a half and half split between console sales and software. Whereas now you skip forward 7-8 years, and now it's mostly software. I think it's 20% console. So they're getting most of their money from games, from services and stuff. So with that in mind, maybe they just don't want to use these games to sell consoles anymore because the games themselves have become more profitable, because now they're in this position where they're selling more than ever before. They have more beloved franchises than ever before, and they're making more money than ever before off them. So their business model has kind of shifted to focus on that, which is why I think they're not at all eager to make the sacrifice of sales to ship consoles, because consoles across the board, this includes Microsoft and everyone else, just aren't as important to the business model sales-wise as they once were.
Oh no, my point is entirely in the way that they've advertised it, or the reality that we could have just been sat back and got PS4s or PS4 Pros. They could have encouraged you to buy a PlayStation 4 Pro and said the PS5's coming in 2022, and we could have all, even something like Cyberpunk would have done a hell of a lot better because you could have focused on those specific SKUs. Obviously that's third party or whatever, but in terms of just, like I said, it's the way that they've advertised it, it's the way that they created this idea of what a PlayStation 5 can give you, and I'm sure that it will over enough time. But right now, I mean, he mentions in here that it's also very important to have showpieces for PS5, hence the development of Returnal and Ratchet that are exclusive to PS5. Misses out Destruction All-Stars, and everyone seems to forget that game exists, including the head of Sony. But yeah, I mean, for the rest of this year, though, we don't have any more first-party PS5 games that are exclusive, and the only thing that's coming for the rest of this year that is exclusive to a system on the next gen is Xbox's Halo Infinite. So it's going to be a weird year. Obviously, the first year after console launches is always a bit all over the place, and I think it is in a better state overall than 2019 2014 was back then. But it's been a bit of a mess. To throw in as well, Gran Turismo 7 is also now going to be cross-gen, which was another game shown off as, oh my god, look at how much this can do on the PlayStation 5, but now it's coming to PS4. So it's a strange mix of signals. And also Holst says, well, we can't walk away from 110 million PS4 owners, right? And it's like, well, you walked away from 158 million PS2 owners to sort of push things forward. I guess there's a wider conversation to be had on the reality of why we need systems, why we need consoles, and what a generation even means. If games have longer tails on them and you're playing them for multiple years, maybe that is seasons of content and things like that. I think that conversation is coming, and it's fueled by things like this. But spending the money on a new system and then sitting there with it and going like, well, all I'm getting is frame rate and resolution boost versions of a last gen game. I think that totally stuff stings.
And it's kind of weird because obviously we're looking back at how things were handled in the PlayStation 4 era, and it's weird because Sony wasn't doing this back then. They did make that clean break, but at the same time, they didn't have many exclusives for a long while. They came out, obviously, with Infamous Second Son. They had Killzone Shadowfall. They had Knack. And then for the longest time, they just had nothing. They just had nothing. And it took them a few years to get going to release the likes of Horizon, to release the likes of God of War, to release the likes of Spider-Man. And for the longest time, the conversation was just, where are the exclusives? What's going on? So in a way, they kind of skipped over this problem before by just not having anything, and now that they've got things ready to go, they're like, well, we can make more money. We can make more money if we put them on PlayStation 4. And I think that's an interesting wrinkle, that they actually are ready to go this time. And I wonder whether they would have done this in 2013 had they had the likes of Horizon or even like an Uncharted ready to go very close to the launch of the machine.
Maybe. I guess the whole thing with that is, like you said, Killzone, Infamous, they were both only available on PS4, so the conversation around that was, this is why you need the new system. I think there's just this weird feeling of, I didn't need to buy this, I didn't need to. I feel like I was suckered in by a bunch of this marketing stuff, and I feel like you could have just waited. I feel like the generation might even be stronger if you wait until 2022. Maybe it benefits the third parties like the likes of Cyberpunk, and it also means that you can come out the gate with something like God of War and Horizon on a PS5, make them exclusive. It comes out the gate a lot stronger than cross-generation Miles Morales. Demon's Souls is obviously only PS5 exclusive as well, but like frame data wise or geomesh wise, it's a base remake of the 2009 game. So things like that are kind of in the conversation as well. To throw in the end of this is a new IP coming from Sony Bend. We knew that was coming anyway because of Jason Schreier's Bloomberg report, but Herman Hulst does say that the game will build on the deep open world systems that were developed with Days Gone, which the only game mechanic I can think from Days Gone that you could build on would be the crowd tech. So I don't know if you what you think of them making that like a signature thing going forward.
I think that could be cool. I enjoyed Days Gone for what it was. I think the open world design especially was really gorgeous and really immersive. Like the actual landscape was interesting, so I hope they bring that attention to detail over to this new project. But I've just got to say, Scott, why does Sony just keep announcing things or making statements in the most boring way possible? This is a company that used to be known for its crazy adverts and crazy marketing. It always didn't work. It wasn't always great, but it was always something. Now it's just, here's a white screen with some text, and it's an update from Sony Bend. Here's Sony Santa Monica talking about why God of War is delayed. Here's another interview with Wired talking about where we are. There's just no flash to it, and that's kind of so weird for this company in particular. Yeah, they have their state of plays, but so much of it nowadays is just, oh yeah, there's a new VR system coming. Here's a blog post on our website. That's going to get me hyped. Yes.
The blog post from Techland, the video that Techland put up when they confirmed some new stuff for Dying Light 2, where they had a green screen and they'd replaced the entire backdrop so it looked like they were standing or sitting on top of a city during the apocalypse. That's got a higher production value than Sony themselves at this point. And like you said, the PlayStation blog is it's a person who runs the blog talking to Herman Hulst, but it's still Sony having a conversation with themselves. It's not like the most It doesn't. It just comes across as this weird sort of half synthetic approach to getting information out. But at least that's the thing. A lot of this blog was just addressing every possible criticism that's come up so far, including a comment on the Japanese market, the fact that the PS5 didn't latch on to Japanese sales in the region as much as it has done beforehand. And Herman Hulse just says that, of course, Japan is still a major area that they want to focus on. He mentions Polyphony Digital. Obviously, they're based out of Tokyo, the Gran Turismo people, and says that Team Asobi, the Astrobot people, are doing a new game. Says that they're developing a franchise for all ages with global appeal, and then says that we haven't seen the last of Astrobot either. So I'm assuming that there are two separate games. But as someone who literally would say that Astrobot, the pack-in game on the PS5, is the best game of the generation so far, I'm pretty stoked about that.
Yeah, brilliant. Give me more Astrobot. Give me only Astrobot. If every exclusive was only that little lad going through PlayStation history, or even not doing that, just going to other planets, having a good time, I'm here for it. Yeah, I think those games, that Astrobot, the VR one, I think it's called something, Rescue, I can't remember, Rescue Mission. And then even, some of the Playroom stuff before then, the VR Playroom as well. Like, this little guy could be something special, could be more widespread and more mainstream than he is. And I just want more people to play, like you said, the Astrobot game that's currently on the PlayStation 5, because it is awesome. And maybe, Returnal is pretty good, but maybe the best showcase we have for the PlayStation 5 tech at the moment.
Yeah, it feels like that was, to me, that felt like them doing a Nintendo and just sort of recognizing their own legacy and just going like, we've all got feelings for all these old consoles. Let's just celebrate this stuff. Remind you why you fell in love with PlayStation over the years, or at least you have a bunch of memories relating to the brand over the years, and celebrate that stuff. But yeah, let us know what you think down in the comments below of the likes of God of War being delayed to 2022. What do you think of the cross-gen stuff, Gran Turismo 7, God of War now being on PlayStation 4 as well? And what's your general thoughts on the way that Sony have rolled out the PS5 so far? For now, I've been Scott from WhatCulture.com.
I've been Josh from WhatCulture.com.
I will catch you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.